I'm going to show you how to construct an 8.5 by 11 tri-fold brochure template for the inside and outside files. And then I'll also show you how to convert it so that you can enlarge your background and print as a full bleed item at a commercial printer, which would involve printing on a piece of paper larger than an 8.5 by 11 and the excess area being trimmed away. To begin, create a new file. Set your size to be 11 inches wide, 8.5 inches tall, 300 pixels per inch, and CMYK color, and say OK. The first thing we do is divide this up into thirds. Now, you can crunch the numbers if you want, but the easy way for me to do this is to create a new file by clicking New File in my Layers panel, grabbing my rectangular marquee tool and making a selection that's as tall as my document and roughly 1/3. And then I fill that with color, and I do that on my new layer by hitting Option Delete and deselect, Command D. This isn't a permanent piece, we'll actually be getting rid of it here in a minute. What I do next is make a copy of that layer. I'm going to hit Command J, grab my Move tool, and move it to the side, holding Shift down so it doesn't go up or down. If your Snap to option is on, you'll notice that as that edge appears, it'll kind of pop back and forth. That means it's smack up against that first one. But what we need is an indicator where those two are. So I'm going to hold down my Command key and then hit my right arrow button twice so that I can see where those two meet up. Then I'll do the same thing again, Command J to duplicate the layer, hold Shift while dragging it over, and then Command right arrow twice. So now I have three objects that are perfectly the same size and they're lined up really well. I'm going to select all three of those over here in my Layers panel by clicking on the top, holding Shift, and clicking on the bottom, and then transform, Command T, and pull the edge all the way out to the side of the paper and hit Enter. So this is how I figure out where my exact third marks are. Now to set up some guidelines. Guidelines in Photoshop don't print, but they're a visual reminder of where it's safe to put text as well as where you might fold a document. First, you need your rulers. So go up to View and turn your rulers on. You can also push Command R. Make sure your rulers are showing inches, so right click and choose inches. If you talk printer speak, in the graphic design and printing world, often measurements are set in picas and points. So if you're looking at setting up a template and the sizes are indicated by picas and points, that is also an option up here in your measurements. We need ours on inches. Then zoom in a little bit. To create a guideline, you simply click on one of the rulers and drag out a line. For an 8.5 by 11 object, I suggest a safe text zone of about 1/4 inch. So looking at my size, here's a 1 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, and I would let go of my line right there. Then I would pull one out from the top and do the same thing, and do that to all the sides. Now there's not a ruler on the right side, you just pull a guideline out from the left-hand ruler. And same for the bottom, there's not a ruler, you just pull one out from the top. And that'll show us where we should keep all of our small informative text inside of. Now there's some other important guidelines on here that are currently not there, and that is where our folds are. So grab a guideline and bring it out to where those lines meet. And what you should do is you probably do have a little bit of extra space here. I like to line my guideline up along the outside of that on both sides, because if you think about how paper folds together, there's actually a need for a little bit of folding space. So as long as it's just a teeny tiny area, a little bit off of dead third divided isn't going to make any difference. So now I'm done with my objects. I can actually delete those layers. This is the basic setup for a trifold. I would suggest taking it one step further, and instead of considering this as a entire 8.5 by 11 area, remember that when it's folded you only see one panel at a time. Because only one panel shows at a time, you need to treat these folds, if they're on the outside, as an outside edge, outside of the brochure I mean. So I would actually bring another guideline out and set it 1/4 inch on either side of that line. Now for time's sake I'm just going to eyeball this, but I would suggest that you be precise in your measurements. It will pay off in the end. So now I'm left with 3 safe text areas, and honestly at this point you could save your template and close it and use it for either the front or the back. I like to make mine a little more useful though and designate which these are. So I would save this one as, for example, my outside template, and to do that I would designate where the front is. In fact, I'm going to put outside front, outside back. Now depending on how you're folding your trifold, this might be a little different, but for me when I fold mine up, this would be the inside flap. Okay, we have those designated. I'm going to flatten my file by coming over to the Layers menu and choosing Flatten from the drop-down menu. And then I'm going to save it. So File, Save. Give it a descriptive name. So this is an 8.5 by 11 trifold template. And I'm going to put outside on this since I'm going to make some different things, and save. Let's undo that last step. So Command Option Z until you get your type layers back. Go up to Image and choose Duplicate. Change the name on this one so that the last bit says Inside. And now we actually have 2 different files, and we'll work on the inside one. And this I just say inside left, inside middle, and inside right. Because usually when you have a brochure, you look at it folded up on the front, and then you open it and you see that inside flap, and then you open that flap and you see the whole thing all together. So this would be the inside. And I'd save this one and keep the last as inside, make sure it's a Photoshop document, and click Save. Before I finalize these ones, I'm actually going to flatten this again. So Flatten Image, Save, Command S, and on the other one, Flatten Image, Save, Command S. That gives us a trifold that you could print out on your personal printer at home, and I would highly recommend when you print, so Command P, to choose the option to position things so that it scales to fit the media. That'll make sure that it is fitting on your media. If you don't scale to fit the media, you could end up with some funky little measurements on the outside. Then I would print it and try folding it up and see what happens. Now, if you are printing a brochure through a commercial printer and you have color that goes all the way to the edge, you don't want to see any white border around the edge, you need to convert it to a full bleed template, which I'll show in another video, I think.